Oh, look at all these mulberries. These are so delicious. How's it growing? Tired of dealing with pesky nematodes wreaking havoc on your garden? In this talk, I will share how to identify, prevent, and treat nematode infestations so that your garden can grow as it should. How's it growing? Nematodes, my garden nemesis. And it's one of my favorite subjects. I remember when I first started gardening in South Florida, and I grew up gardening in Southern California, and when a neighbor across the street here told me about nematodes, I thought, oh, I won't have that problem. I had never heard of it. It's not like I'm a newbie to gardening, please. We have a different set of rules here in this climate, and in the dirt, this dead dirt in the sand, they thrive in this type of environment. Nematodes are estimated to cause more than 10% of the worldwide plant losses, which translates to over $100 billion annually. And they tend to cause most damage in the tropics and subtropics, so lucky us. George Debs, he lives here in Wilton Manors. He's gone through Dr. Elaine Ingham's soil food web course, and he is very knowledgeable about all of this. I mean, he can identify what kind of nematode that is. This is his work. He's letting me use some of the photos tonight that he's taken under his microscope. So he's certified lab technician, and if you need to take a soil sample to him and have him see what you have, he's the one to go to. There are bacteria feeding nematodes, fungal feeding nematodes, and the dirty life-sucking parasites, the root feeders. The root feeders. People say, well, there are beneficial nematodes. I don't like that term because I don't really care for that term because Dr. Elaine Ingham, what she considers as the most beneficial is having a soil food web, an ecosystem underground of all these different microbes, which includes root feeding because they're food for the beneficial nematodes. And here they are. This is probably the worst infection I've seen in my garden, and this is on a passion fruit vine. What they recommend is getting the yellow passion fruit and grafting some other varieties to it because the yellow passion fruit is resistant to nematodes.
What is the significance of those roots?
All right, so see the knots? That is how you know that it's a nematode. We got legumes though that also have knots, and those, if you can easily rub those off, then those are not root knots from nematodes. Those are the manifestation of the rhizobium bacteria, which is good. We love, they have a beautiful relationship with legumes that help it be more productive and then pull nitrogen out of the air and put it into the soil. So what happens is you'll have, usually with like tomato plants, if you're growing tomatoes and, oh, this one is just really not doing well, and you notice it's sick and it's so susceptible to pests and disease, and it's not really the pest and disease, it's the root problem, because there's something living in the roots that's sucking the life out of it. One female nematode can lay up to 600 eggs. So you can imagine the exponential growth, population explosion of these things. And that's why in each garden box that I have, I'll have a different set of tools. Because I'm just assuming, okay, well, so in your garden, if you're digging around and you're digging around something that could possibly be infected, then that's a good time to sanitize or even sunbake. My garden tools sunbake around our swimming pool more than I do. Oh, I gotta say also, going back to George Debs, for years I called it nematodes. And then all of a sudden I started realizing Dr. Elaine Ingham, she's pronouncing it nematodes, and I've been pronouncing it wrong. So I had this internal conflict, like, do I change it on my YouTube channel? Then I'll be inconsistent. You know, no, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna keep it the way other people pronounce it that way. And then someone commented on one of my videos, it's not pronounced that way, it's pronounced nematodes. I contacted George, and he said, funny you should ask that, because he just had a small class that he took in San Diego where some of the Soil Food Web students were meeting with Dr. Elaine Ingham. I'm like, I would just love to meet her, love to talk to her. And he got to ask her face to face. He said, because he's been pronouncing it wrong too all this time. She said it's pronounced nematodes. So I had a little fun on the YouTube channel. Has anyone seen some of the more recent videos where Cowboy Stat gets a little sassy with me? Okay. All right, so usually outside I wear a cowboy hat. Well, I kind of like developed Cowboy Stack as a separate personality. And my husband goes, oh, great, you're talking to yourself now. I said, well, it's a manifestation of my internal conflict. And he goes, yeah, that's where it starts. This is part 3 in the series Cover Crops to Kill Nematodes. It's pronounced nematode. I've heard it pronounced both ways, and I've always pronounced it this way. I know, but soil biologist Dr. Elaine Ingham pronounces it nematode. Right, she does. And that's the correct way. All right, nematode. But it makes it fun. You know, we gotta make learning fun. Soil solarization. I have a video about this. But today, we're talking soil solarization. So if you wanna learn how to solarize to kill nematodes, I've got a video on how the major universities, what they recommend to do it. And when I found out I have nematodes, when I didn't even know, weeks before what they were, I went to the extension office and with a soil sample and found out that they don't do soil samples anymore. You have to send it in, and I didn't want to go through all that hassle. Anyway, she gave me a pamphlet and told me about soil solarization. I did it for 9 years, and I'm giving some options, and this is what the universities tell you to do, and I was a big proponent of it, but I also saw how it was really destructive. Okay, here, you're wondering what is soil solarization. Let's kind of cover that. So here's one of my beds. I would solarize it all summer long. This is clear plastic. I know it doesn't look clear, but it's the condensation that makes it look like it's white plastic. You could do it in the ground, in your landscaping. This isn't really practical for a lot of our landscaping, for that context, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that.
Is the idea that people kill the nematodes?
So what you do, just quick basics of soil solarization, you moisten up the soil, and then you want it higher in the center because when it rains, you don't want it to puddle up. It just kind of drains to the side, and then I would scoop out the water out of the corners. You have to have it sealed around the edges, whether it's in the ground or in the bed. And the solarize, this is the counterintuitive thing, is say people who want to do this usually start with black plastic, and they think that that's going to heat up the soil more. It's counterintuitive, and the universities will tell you that the solar rays can penetrate much deeper when you're using clear plastic. I made a transition this past summer into cover cropping, and I made a 3-part series on cover crops. And I love this method because rather than destroying, there was nearly no soil texture to my garden bed soils anymore. I would add compost every year, and I thought, well, at first everything grew pretty well, but after so many years of doing this, I couldn't grow cucumbers anymore. A lot of things I couldn't grow anymore. They were just susceptible to all kinds of pests and diseases. There are cover crops, 3 cover crops that I cover in cover crop series that kill nematodes. And besides killing nematodes, they also add fertility, and they're building life and microbial life into the soil. So I'm a big proponent of this instead. And I won't spend a lot of time on this either, because a lot of times in our landscape, it's just not practical. In the first video, it was mostly like, wow, I've gone from the antithesis of, soil solarization to cover cropping, to antithesis. In part 2, I dove into the specific crops that I grew. And part 3 was how to terminate these cover crops, and it turned out to be easier than I expected. I grew sorghum, Sudan grass, sun hemp, Kodiak brown mustard. Now let's get into something a little more practical for landscape applications. I have a video on this too. I named her Priscilla the papaya. You grow, girl. You grow, girl. This is a method that I learned from people who grow fig trees, and they cut the bottom out. So I did it with this papaya plant, and it was a huge success. One thing I regret not doing is loosening up the roots in the bottom before I set her down in the hole to open up that tap root wherever it was. She had no problem. She exploded with growth once I put her in the hole. And so I just leave enough plastic to kind of hold it together. The purpose for doing this is because most strains of nematodes can't live so far deep down. And I've contacted the extension office to let me know, so how far and what give me some specifics on this. And they never got back to me. I contacted them again, couldn't get a straight answer. But it sure helped with my situation. So I set the pot into the ground. Of course, with papayas especially, you don't want to sink them down too far. It's actually up higher because I knew I was going to mulch it really heavily. So once Priscilla got some good growth, I had a feeling the taproot has found her way. So I pulled that plastic out, and then within weeks, look at that trunk. Within weeks, she exploded with growth. And I had the largest papayas I have ever seen. 9 pounds, 2 ounces. 9 pounds, 2 ounces, it's like a baby. Let's talk about marigolds. And I want to bust a couple of myths about marigolds right now. People think, oh, just plant some marigolds. Not just any marigolds, because I couldn't believe this when it happened to me. I mean, and then I'm like, I can't believe there are root knots on these marigold roots. You're gotta be kidding me. I'm growing them because marigolds, French marigolds, are known to secrete a substance that kills root knot nematodes. So you can imagine when a master gardener, well-meaning, we all make mistakes, right? I'm not going to say his name, but he gave me seeds that a friend of his said were French marigolds. Oh, it's an old cultivar of French marigolds. So I'm growing them in my garden beds to help control the nematodes. And after the season, everything was just not doing well. And you got to be kidding me. Huge honkers on the roots. I couldn't believe it. So I looked it up. Sure enough, I think it was a UC Davis article that it was a report that showed that French marigolds, you're safest to go with French marigolds because, and a couple of others too, but it specifies French. French marigolds will kill the largest different strains. There are hundreds of strains of nematodes. There's no use in taking a soil sample somewhere to find out what kind of, if you have those root knots, you need to start learning how to manage your soil. And that's what we're talking about tonight. Soil amendments. Chitin. Chitin is found in crustaceans, the shells of crab and lobster, shrimp tails, and also exoskeletons of insects. So bats, what do bats eat? I mean, some species eat fruit, but most of them eat mosquitoes and other bugs. So their bat guano is full of chitin. And why do you want chitin in the soil? Because the same bacteria that goes after chitin also goes after nematode eggs. I recommend, of course, bat guano, crab meal. You can get insect frass. You just don't want to go too bat guano crazy. All right, BioComplete compost. There's not a whole lot of places you can get BioComplete compost, so I ordered some from California, this company here. It was the most expensive compost I've ever bought. It was like $80 plus shipping for 10 pounds. But Dr. Elaine Ingham's students formed this company, and this is microscope tested, so you can use it as inoculant. I use it as inoculant. You can do compost teas, compost extract, and that's my favorite way to do it now. Use that to inoculate your garden and inoculate your compost bins. And so, but I treat it like gold. So there's a second person at Tree Amigos Growers that I know is a soil food web lab technician. Just a quick correction here. Raphael, as of now, has his soil food web certification in the foundational courses and is still working on that lab tech certification.
So that's what I'm doing now. So probably after this, I'm going to take the final exams and become a lab tech. Great. And then I'm going to follow the next step to get a consultant certification. They are both working on building their own BioComplete composts. I'm assuming eventually one of them will have that available to sell. So I would much rather support someone locally who does this. Yeah, Tree Amigos Growers in Davie.
There he is.
Fantastic. I don't even consider it a nursery because there's so much more than that. They support our garden community, and they did. Was it Jason Long? Okay. Oh, I love those guys. I did a feature, like a 30, 40-minute video featuring them.
We've worked so hard and been through so much together that, he's my brother. And I'm lucky to be able to start a business with someone I have that good a relationship with.
Yep, thank you, man. That's same here.
The mission of my YouTube channel is to help new gardeners grow their own organic food, and they have the same mission basically, and they know their stuff. And we're moving together into more regenerative gardening. This is something that wasn't on my radar until just recently. I've been looking into it, and this is really helping in India. Neem seed meal, and it's something I can't say for sure that it works. I'm just saying that other people that I've run into are swearing by this. And it's also known as neem cake. Okay, so on the YouTube channel, Stacks Urban Harvest, so I'm ready for questions. I wanted to keep it brief so we have time for questions. Go ahead.
Yes, do nematodes only attack fruits and vegetables that are short-lived with delicate roots such as passion or pie tomatoes, or can they also attack mature trees?
Yeah, they can actually attack mature trees, Barbados cherry, mulberry trees. One of the questions I want to ask everybody is, does anyone here
know for a fact that you've got something that is infected with nematodes, and I would love to know what it is that you're growing that has it.
Resistant to nematodes. I'm surprised that you mentioned mulberry. Mulberry is a local main tree. I'm surprised that.
Mulberry, there is a variety of mulberry that is resistant to, and that's the same. So that's a whole nother thing. So there are nematode resistant varieties of tomatoes, but then you're so limited on, the heirloom tomatoes that you want to grow, so the variety of mulberry is something like 92nd Street is the name, or the street name. What you would want to do is get one of those trees and then graft whatever you want onto that. And I've tried that with tomatoes, and oh my goodness, it's tough. It's tough because you need the graft to be successful, obviously.
I found with my mulberries, as long as they stay hydrated, I'm okay. But if I hit a dry spell, that's when the nematodes move in. They like a dry, sandy.
Yeah, the nematodes, she was saying her mulberry trees get worse during the dry season. Well, they thrive in poor soil. And this is another thing that back when I was learning about all this, I actually got a little offended the way people would tell me, oh, you're having trouble with nematodes? You must have really poor soil. Like, well, first of all, it got me thinking, right? So let's define poor soil, because I've been fertilizing it, does that make it healthy soil that you're putting the NPK in there? No, not really. As I learned, it's having a diverse biodiversity, and it's actually shielding it from the solar rays. Having that soil food web, a complete soil food web, that is a healthy soil. There were other hands.
If you dig the soil up and you see a lot of earthworms in your soil, is that healthy soil?
Earthworms are a great indicator of a healthy soil. I have a video just about this. And when we first moved to our place, I showed the before and after pictures of our house. And it's night and day, because what we've done, we've had some basic landscaping put in, but then I've added a lot of our own. But I get these huge truckloads of wood chip mulch. I gotta back up a little bit. When we first moved there, you could dig 100 holes around the property, and there was so much dead dirt, you would not find one earthworm. Now you dig once. In this video, literally, all I did was dig once, and the camera just happened to be focused on an earthworm. All I have to do is dig once anywhere where I've done this heavy mulching with the wood chips, because I had a population explosion. So yes, earthworms are a great indicator of good, healthy soil, but they also help with the soil building process, building the life in the soil.
How would I know if I didn't give it to them? You have to adopt the plan to indicate somehow that.
Yeah, great questions. You don't until you do a little digging around and just carefully digging around the root ball and inspect the roots. Take a look at the roots. And if you start seeing knots, then it's definitely the nematodes. So here's another good thing, because since we're talking about landscape plants, I have a mulberry tree that I'm pretty certain has nematodes. And I haven't done the excavating, but what I do is I mulch it heavily with this mulch. None of this wood chip mulch that you buy at the store with chemicals in it. This is chemical free, and it's soil building around it. Inoculate it with good compost.
Where did you get this wood chip mulch that's so good?
Okay. So I use a guy here in Broward that I recommend. His name is Ray's Tree Service, and he's fantastic. He's the only one I trust trimming our mango tree,
and any of our fruit trees. When he trims the mango tree, I say, bring your truck, anything you have in the truck, give it to me, and then I'll take the mulch from the mango tree also. My video that I have about, I call it my free-range worm farm. My free-range worm farm, because I don't have to harvest the worm castings. They show up to work on time. They never call in sick. They're great. I love these guys. It's all about the wood chip. That video is, and so one thing that I show in the video, if you have any allergies, wear a mask. And this is where one of the things where the cowboy stat got a little sassy with me.
As I've mentioned, this is free mulch.
Oh, come on, what's with the mask? You're outside, you're alone, and COVID is...
Okay, calm down, calm down. It has nothing to do with COVID.
Seriously, it can make you sick and I have had a horrible cough for about 5 or 6 months. So wear a mask if you do this, if you think you might be susceptible to... So, because that, like, once again, that methane gas will just kick. So I always try to do it upwind, so it's blowing away from me. When there's no breeze, I'm like, come on, really?
Is that with any mulch? Basically, you should be wearing a mask?
If you're buying store-bought mulch,
No, I'm talking about, for example, I was ordering mulch for bishops. And so I would get like a big pile of the natural wood mulch, not the dye stuff in the back.
well, when you work with it, is it kicking up methane gas?
It has a smell, yes.
If you've worked with it and it didn't make you sick, I wouldn't bother with it.
I'm just curious, if you know your plant is infected with nematodes, can you take cuttings? Does a nematode go through the whole plant?
Oh no, good question. Good question. Nematodes do not go through the whole plant. They live in the roots. So you're safe taking a cutting from that plant, and that's something I've considered doing, is taking a cutting from my mulberry tree, keeping it up off the ground, doing like I did with Persilla, the papaya. I'm not really too thrilled about buying that other variety of because the mulberry tree that I have is a dwarf, and I don't have a lot of room for like a full-grown mulberry tree. So I would love to know about dwarfism and grafting. If you graft, if the scion is a dwarf or vice versa, what happens? If anyone knows about that, I would love to know. Oh, a lot of hands. Go ahead.
Is there something you could put in the soil to kill the nematodes, such as that Bayer solution that they use once a year, or anything else that can actually go in the soil?
Anything to go in the soil. That reminds me of a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. So the chitin, bat guano, you can put directly into the soil. It's insect frass. They mostly talk about top dressing. You can top dress it. I would try the neem seed, the neem cake. Down to Earth is one of the companies that sells crab meal. One thing that they caution is that if you're putting it down around the roots, while it's breaking down, it can be harmful to the plant. So it's better to put it in your compost, let it break down in there, or top dress your plant. Don't put it down into where the roots are. Let it break down. There were some other questions.
French marigolds, if we go to Lowe's or Home Depot, is there a way to differentiate which ones of which are not?
Make sure that it has a tag that says French. It can be the petite French or other. I trust those.
Is there a specific color?
Oh no, I have French marigolds that are yellow, orange, a number of different colors. My problem is I got seeds from someone who said it was something, who got it from someone who said it was something, and something, maybe it's a possibility, I guess. Maybe it is an old cultivar of French marigolds, and that cultivar just happens to be...
French marigolds wouldn't give really big, yellow tropical smaller.
Right. But this one was enormous for marigolds. It was huge. And they were hosting root nematodes. Yeah, it was really shocking for me. I'm like, but I'm growing them to control them. Why are they attacking my marigolds?
But tell me more about the covering crops.
The cover crops.
Crops. So is that something you grow in soil for planting the crops you want to harvest?
Yeah. So the three cover crops that I grew in the soil over the summer, you grow it for about 90 days. When they start to have flower heads, you're supposed to chop them down to the ground. And then I chop them up and then put a layer of compost on top of them, and then you can plant immediately. I really like this method, and I would recommend for your situation with your nematode problem all over your yard, look into these cover crops. Sorghum, Sudan grass, sun hemp, Kodiak brown mustard. The one that I love the most out of this, that did so well for me, is the sun hemp. And I got these this is Tree Amigos Growers, that's their logo. The sorghum, Sudan grass, and the Kodiak brown mustard didn't do quite as well for me, and I read that this mustard is best when it's planted in the early spring when the days are shorter, so because it's day-long sensitive.
Yep. Something in your soil to kill the nematode. Will that kill all your earthworms and other good stuff too? Like a product.
I'm glad you brought this up. This is exactly why I don't give any attention to those. There are companies that have products that claim to kill the nematodes. Nematodes, because I don't know, maybe those are killing all nematodes, and we don't want to kill all nematodes and some of the other life too. So we're not going to have a healthy diversity of microbiology, but with a diversity of other things that are enriching that biodiversity in the soil and building that soil food web, that's what's gonna help.
But is there a reason not to grow your tomatoes or whatever with one of these cover crops? Can you grow your tomatoes along with these plants?
I don't see one. I always have marigolds in with my tomato bed. And then I had some Sudan grass. I didn't terminate because they never reached maturity, and for some reason they still haven't reached maturity, and I just terminated a couple of them just the other day. I'm letting them coexist with the rest of my garden. But the problem is if your tomato plant or any kind of plant that's susceptible to nematodes, if your plant is already infected, there's really no way unless you pull out the plant and throw it out, there's no way to uninfect it. Because those microbes are in the root. And like I said, all it takes is one female nematode, which can lay 600 eggs. And anyway.
What does it look like?
Okay. How do you know when your tomato plant, not just tomato plant, any plant again, is infected? And it will become susceptible to mealybugs, susceptible to all the pests, or one of the fungal diseases. So then you dig down and take a look at the roots, or maybe the plant is so far off you just want to pull it up. Take a look at the roots. When you do, here's what I'll do is I'll put on disposable gloves and I'll have my hand sanitizer. I'll get my shovel, which I will sanitize. I'm careful not to contaminate the other parts of the garden.
Did you find this in palm trees? I've just had a fallen out for 10 years, passed away, and I can't figure out why.
As far as I know, I could be wrong. There might be some variety of palm that is susceptible. As far as I know, I don't know of any palms that are susceptible.
How do you sanitize your garden tools?
Hydrogen peroxide is a great one. I've used, rubbing alcohol. An easy thing to do, rinse it off and sunbake them, especially in the sun when that metal is just sitting out in the sun, it's heating up. They don't do well with heat.
What did you know success?
I'm going to do a follow-up video on my cover crop series. The question, if you didn't hear what she was saying, is how do you know that the cover crops really did anything for your soil? The way that I'm looking at it is healthy microbiology, healthy soil, healthy plants, healthy people. It's all about soil building and adding life to the soil. This is information I listen to many of Dr. Laningham's Soil Food Web webinars. It's fascinating information about how to build that soil. Soil building through attracting earthworms with that wood chip mulch. And we're talking, I will go 12 inches thick around my fruit trees as long as it's pulled away from the trunk and away from the root flares. You do not want to cover the root flare if you want to keep your tree healthy. But it has just done, it breaks down so quickly into the most amazing soil.
So I know that cover crops build the soil, and my understanding is that they will not do the nematodes. They don't make your soil, but the nematodes will still be there.
These varieties are known to kill root knot nematodes. And in fact, I don't remember which one of these, but they help with the life of the nematodes that eat the root feeding nematodes. To be most effective with the Kodiak brown mustard is that it's called biofumigation. Once you cut it down, and this reminds me of something I wanted to say about the marigolds too. You're supposed to till it down into the soil, and then that creates biofumigation. And on that video, I have an article from, I'm sure it's the UF IFAS article. Here's one of the myths I wanted to bring up about marigolds. A lot of people say that you do that with marigolds too. Chop it up, put it down into the soil. There's a UC Davis article that debunks that and says the property that kills I'm sure it's an exudate that goes down into the roots and kills the root knot nematodes. It stops. That whole mechanism stops when the plant dies. So you might be adding, it might be the organic material from that plant that's going to help enrich the soil and ensure when it's not going to be such poor soil and the nematodes aren't going to be thriving as much. But that mechanism needs the plant to be alive for that to work. Okay. Oh. One final thought. Live regeneratively and let's grow together.